Hey, thanks for joining us. I am Fan Aldrich, developer advocate at Equinix, and I use they and she pronouns. We're here at KubeCon, North America 2023 in Chicago, and here with JJ from IBM. Why don't you introduce yourself, JJ?
Hey everybody, my name is JJ Asghar, and I'm a developer advocate for IBM. What does that mean? I still don't know myself.
Still advocating for developers.
Yes,
one way or
exactly.
the other.
Yeah. I'm the developer persona that we try to sell to.
There you go.
Something like
that's
that.
Something, right?
Yeah, something.
That sounds useful.
Yeah.
So what do you work on at IBM? I know you've got a Wastonx shirt on, so I feel like
yes.
this is a leading into it. But
Small little, what is it called? Inspiration there. But no, in all seriousness, I'm here to talk about Wastonx and our trusted AI platform.
Yeah.
And hopefully get developers to recognize that there is a lot of different options out there for AI.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are looking for something that is designed from the ground up to be trusted, you look and take Wastonx seriously.
So that sounds like designed to be trusted feels like big and useful stuff in AI.
Yeah.
Because when you're getting started, I mean, there's, like you said, there's so many options. Like, what do you need if I'm developing and I want to make use of AI? Like, where do you begin?
Yeah.
Where does that all...
So the elevator pitch I give people about why you should even care about Wastonx as a whole. Because why not just use ChatGPT?
ChatGPT or what's the GitHub?
Bard.
Copilot?
Or Copilot.
Yeah.
And Bard from Google. There's a lot of different ones out there. Well, obviously the big gorilla in the room is ChatGPT. So I'm going to just use ChatGPT as the other one.
Yep.
Right? Now, I'm going to say a metaphor here. It's not 100% accurate, but it's the best way for me to describe it for you to grasp where I'm coming from. If you look at ChatGPT, ChatGPT is Napster. Okay? Wastonx is iTunes. If you start with that thought process, don't put too many holes into it because it starts falling apart. But if you just start there and recognize they're two very different, they're the same technology. You still listen to music, but one has a business aspect based around it. It's working with the people to make sure the licensing is correct. It's making sure that attribution is done correctly compared to just taking the stuff from the internet and distributing it back out to the people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, 'cause I know that's the concerns, for instance, that have come up with all of those, right? It's like, where is this, the language models that we trade on something, right? So folks that are like, don't have any idea of AI. Before you get to a thing that can give you useful answers, you have to feed it like all of the data on the internet. So presumably if we're helping write code, we've fed our models like an incredible amount of code from somewhere.
Exactly.
So that's been the concern I know in these circles of like, if I use production code from ChatGPT, do I have liabilities? Will I actually be copying code that's copyrighted? And like,
don't forget about that whole Singaporean problem they had recently, where the Singapore, some company out of Singapore put some not government secrets or some corporate secrets into ChatGPT.
Oh, interesting.
And then someone else was able to ask the right question, and ChatGPT gave them the stuff from Singapore.
Interesting. Good, presumably training on the data that you're feeding it. Yeah.
Also, if you ask it for an AWS key, it gives you an AWS secret key. We don't know if it's valid or anymore, but it looks pretty valid to me.
Well, that's concerning.
Yes. So if you start going down this path, it starts getting darker and darker.
Yeah.
That's one reason why Wastonx exists. So first of all, if you take a quick step back as just Sven was mentioning, things need to be trained. You need to start somewhere. So first of all, there is something literally called the pile. It's called the pile. It's on Wikipedia, and it is a bunch of open source, or what is claimed to be open source data that a lot of open source LLMs are trained on. Unfortunately, we have no idea if the copyrights for a lot of that stuff in the pile is actually correct. IBM are paying data engineers to go through all that data on the pile and creating our foundational models off of that same small subset of it to make sure that we're giving you something close to the pile, but that is legally allowed. Because, again, I'm not going to call names, but strongly suggesting there's a place that we all share code out there. If they take some code from that place and you don't have a license inside of it, there's no default license. How do we know if it's okay for you to use that when ChatGPT gives you that answer?
Yeah.
And now you start talking about GNU licensing. Now you start talking about, all the other licenses out there that could be problematic. And it gets really confusing very quickly.
Yeah, I would imagine. I'm just thinking I know I've worked for and with companies too that have open code that is not necessarily openly licensed, right? So theoretically, you could view and train that code.
Yep.
And you don't need a license to do that.
Yep.
But you absolutely cannot reproduce it.
Yep. I believe there was for a little working at IBM, we do have to work with GNU code.
Yeah.
But we have to have something called a clean room environment to be able to work with code for our products that if for whatever reason we have a GNU project interface with, so we don't make sure that the cross-contamination happens, where we literally have to put 2 engineers in, this is true, separate rooms with 1 engineer walking back and forth, reading the code to suggest the changes for the other engineer from the GNU product. So our legal side is okay to say that we are not actually interfacing at all with GNU code or GPL license code, right? Now I said, when you really go down that path, it gets ludicrous.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden AI is doing this back and forth. That doesn't work. It doesn't work because you can't say that you have a clean cut of the interfaces of the 3 people have to develop. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
It's very bizarre.
No. Yeah, it makes sense to me. I'm trying to think. It's especially GPL licensing that tends to be, or any of the copyleft style infectious licenses. You have to be careful how you use them because they'll have clauses in the license that say, if you use this code, you must then make your code open and free and under the same license.
Exactly.
And so,
yes, it gets very bizarre.
Whatever your moral feelings of it, one way or the other, it does become a challenge for businesses that don't want to do that. For
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's very interesting.
So bringing this all back to AI, there's no easy answer for this. And because of the way we live and how quickly the stuff is moving, we're not going to have any good answers. And then we don't have any checks and balances in any of this.
Right.
At all. So, how are we going to... Finn, I'm asking you this. How do we fix this problem?
I don't know. I'm not prepared to solve this.
Yeah.
I think that's... It's funny that IBM is putting this effort in. It's this is coming back to what I've been thinking of with AI, especially coming out, and more people relying on AI for things. And I'm no, IBM already talked about this in the 70s, right?
Yeah,
a computer should never make a decision because a computer can never be held accountable.
Exactly.
And that's largely what people are offloading, especially if you're pulling in code from it, is the decision about, is this code safe to use? And if you're just trusting the computer, and I just find it very funny. IBM's hey, wait a minute.
Hey.
A computer should never because a computer can never.
Exactly. Well, and also, to yes and that whole, they're pulling code and making that stuff. There's a wonderful, I think it's a 2-frame meme of 6 hours making your product, writing some code, and the person's head's in their hand, sad. And then the next one is I asked some 5 minutes from ChatGPT giving me code, 24 hours of me debugging the code.
So I haven't dived into generating the code through AIs, but I found it I know folks that have, and I found it really useful for especially routine stuff or I'm trying to do this real quick, give me the framework for that. And then
I almost say it's a tutor.
Yeah.
The more I'm seeing this kind of space, it feels more hey, I need to learn how to write a Terraform plan that gives me a bunch of security groups or something like that in this way. And it'll give you a framework to work from.
Yeah.
But you still need to go in there and make the changes yourself. With Wastonx, we do have stuff focused on Ansible and a couple other code systems. But again, you don't know where this attribution of the code being taken from is. So if you take that stuff seriously, which all developers should, they need to recognize that you need to do the homework to understand the value of what you're getting at. You might be saving 15 minutes, but if it becomes something big,
Sure. Right.
There's a whole other conversation.
The truth of every prototype is that it makes it into production, right? Like,
what is the most permanent solution? It's temporary.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. I know how many things you've just like patched on. You're like, so that's still in production then, huh?
Yep.
Good. Great.
Yep. Oh, it's all just baling wire duct tape.
Yeah, no, that's neat. Let's go somewhere with it. Then I got distracted and I lost it. So how do folks get started with like Wastonx? Like if you want them to.
Actually, that's a great question. So obviously in order for you to have some value prop out of using Wastonx, you need to get your fingers on it, right? You need to actually do the typey. We have a handful of different workshops now that actually teach you the value prop of Wastonx through, instead of just a, follow the bouncing ball method, we give you enough of knowledge to walk away with something valuable, something called Watson Assistant. Watson Assistant is a low-code, no-code chatbot system.
Okay.
Where it's powered by Wastonx, but you interface with the chatbot on top of it. So you can actually create like a frequently asked question bot, or a way to fill in like, hey, here's all my, the actual lab teaches you how to create something like Comcast. When you call Comcast and ask for changing your bill or your phone number or something like that, it teaches you like how to walk through that kind of call tree, right?
Sure.
The power of it is you learn that Wastonx is the thing that you are talking to, and using normal language as an assistant on the other side. And it will interface with the questions you are asking to the decision tree that you've created.
And it builds the decision tree as you're
Exactly, which is more valuable in our mind, because now all of a sudden you can take away that first level of support. That, you need to just go to my frequently asked question, or what's my website? It'll give you the website or something like that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to deal with all the prompt engineering or all the more advanced stuff you need to learn to make Wastonx valuable. I will say though, part 2 and part 3 of our workshops, or I should say 3 and 4, not part, because anyway, organization's hard. We end up showing you how to use Python to push you back into Wastonx with prompt engineering. So you actually learn how to do really deep prompt engineering work with Wastonx.
So I know vague things about prompt engineering, but like describe what it is and how Python code can be used to like feed this back in.
Yeah, so Vin and I were both sysadmins deep down inside. We still use Bash to make our lives better, right?
Yes.
Yes. So we learned how to interface with computers through Bash.
Yeah. Yep.
In AI, you need to learn how to do it with prompt engineering. You need to start building a conversation around what you're looking for with AI through text. It takes that text, takes its model, looks for what the things that you are asking for, and zeroes into what it's looking for. No longer is it RM/RF to destroy your world. Now it's, I need to write a way to delete something in this way. And
Wastonx, please destroy the world.
Pretty much. Back to Skynet. But in all seriousness, prompt engineering's ability to make that conversation piece to prompt to get to the answer you're looking for.
Nice.
And it's very much an art form right now. It is not easy to do. There's some great tutorials out there that as my voice cracks, that you're more than welcome to find, more than welcome to reach out to me to find, that will teach you the art form that is prompt engineering, and then hopefully you'll be able to build off of that for other stuff.
Interesting. So it's largely like asking the right questions in the right order in the specific.
If you've ever had to ask a 6-year-old to do the dishes, you can't just be like, hey, go do the dishes.
Right. or my fatal flaw, it's like, oh, would you do this?
Yes.
And they're like, no. And you're like, yeah, that's on me?
Yep.
That's on me. I phrased it as a question.
Exactly.
What I meant was, go do this now.
Exactly. But before you do that, please turn on the water. Also, use this. You have to use soap. Okay. Okay. Now you got to use a sponge.
This is that peanut butter and jelly sandwich task.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think the most interesting one I've seen, something along those lines, was I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like someone would ask a question, and it was probably ChatGPT would get the answer wrong, and they were just like, try harder, and then it would just get it right the next time.
Oh,
it was
wow.
like, right. It's one of those bizarre things. You're like, why does that work?
That's not
like,
right.
Why does it click?
That's amazing.
It's like, no, that's wrong. Try again. It's like, oh, is it this? You're like, yes. Like, why did you give me the wrong one first? I don't understand.
It's very bizarre. Very bizarre.
I'm finding more and more interesting things as it dives in, like the way you can, or it'll say like, I can't provide these answers in this way, and it's like, well, you ask a different question, and suddenly you get exactly what you were after. And it's
exactly. One of my most favorite ones is, so I played in the open source LLMs for a while, because also this stuff costs money, right? Sure. Running an AI system requires real resources. That's another thing people don't recognize, is that they think getting an LLM with billions of whatever it's called, and the best and the brightest, or the best and the most expensive, is the right way. We're learning that's actually not. You don't want to just get the big, you want to get the one that is designed close enough to what you were trying to answer.
Interesting.
There are ones out there, open source models, that do better than some of the Bards or some of the ChatGPTs out there, because they are designed, targeted for the correct way of interfacing with it. I will say though, there are some that are really, really bad. I asked one, hey, what is a developer advocate? They told me that I worked for Barack Obama.
Oh yeah?
And I traveled around the world as a CIA agent trying to stop crime, international crime. I don't think that's what I do.
I do love the unreliable narrator speculative fiction genre of chatbots. So it's
and the first line was they worked for Barack Obama, which I thought was very, very, very specific.
What a bizarre moment. You're like, where does this
come from?
That's amazing. Neat. I'm sorry. I'm held up on all the fun things you can.
You're just waiting for Barack to come back to ask us what we do.
Yeah, I wanted to know when that was. It's news to me that I worked for Barack. So. So sorry. I was trying to remember. So like, the general knowledge AIs seem to be less useful than for like actual productive purposes, and it seems that like having something that's zeroed into your domain knowledge is giving more accurate or more valuable answers.
Right now, if you came to me and said, JJ, my boss needs AI. He doesn't care how it happens. They just want
AI.
We want AI now, so we can tick that box and go back to whatever we were doing.
Yeah.
I tell them, without going too deep into the space, if you just need to make your boss happy, think of AI as the best librarian you'll ever have. If you can put your mind at that space, things will get significantly easier. Every company has a bunch of PDFs out there.
Yeah.
Whether it be HR, business processes, sales figures. There are a lot of LLMs out there that have a relatively good question and answer interface to them.
Mm-hmm.
That you can shove those PDFs into them, and they can infer questions you might have for them. This could also be included with pictures and graphs.
Interesting.
So if you're like, hey, what were my sales projections 6 years ago compared to my competitor on this product, the chances of AI giving you that information back in a readable form is actually significantly high now, because you're giving it a very clear question off of a data set that is relatively easy to understand.
Yeah.
But asking AI to create a patent for your next product to do X, Y, and Z, we are very far away from that.
Interesting. I like that as librarian. It gives me a lot of interesting thoughts around the value for AI to help with things like incident response and resilience engineering, right?
Yeah.
So like one of the things it's difficult because the time involvement is so expensive, right? Like the amount of like people involvement and like time spent thinking about and process improvement of like having a corpus of incidents and like being able to pick up what are the themes, like what's happening across the multiple incidents that we're having in this company, like where can we find common problems so that we can start to uncover more interesting systemic issues rather than like individual cases one at a time. So that's really interesting, because if you can have a model that you can feed all of this in and ask it things like, hey, what are common themes that we're finding with these? What are the top?
Why every third Tuesday does the servers go down? And it
Sure, right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. But even like, are we discovering like, oh, each one of these has some line about some executive coming in and derailing a conversation.
exactly.
Right, like that's really interesting that you wouldn't necessarily pick up looking at them individually.
Yes.
But being able to ask a question about like a corpus of incidents
Yeah.
but like finding and convincing someone to spend the resources on a person to catalog all these incidents and read them and do all that is very, very expensive.
Very expensive.
And that's very interesting. I can see AI doing. Like, I'd be curious to run. I want one of these experiments I don't quite trust it yet to like not lie to me. I mean, or not like interpret things the way I wouldn't.
There's actually a lot of really good open source LLMs that if you gave it some level of consistent, actually, the more I think about it, that's a really good idea.
Yeah,
with a really good
it's tuned to like individual organizations' data, right?
Yeah,
like that's what you're asking it about.
Yeah.
But that would be useful insights into what was my SRE into that, right? Like how do we solve these bigger systemic problems rather than like the one-off things?
Exactly.
How do we get better at solving the big things?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
That's really clever. Ben, that's really clever.
I'm curious. I have to dive into this thought process a little more and see if I can work with it.
I feel like there's a talk coming out of this.
Yeah, well, an experiment at least. I'm gonna have to find out. Like, can I collect this from someone and like and see if it gives interesting results? So then maybe that's a useful talk.
It's good stuff.
I like that thought of AI as a librarian. That's really interesting.
I mean, it's also one of the easiest ways to grasp everything going on around it because, like, everybody thinks normies in this world see AI as what was that movie? Movie Her.
Sure.
Yeah. They think of that movie Her or all the modern day AI narratives, not recognizing that AI is not intelligent. Even though we call it AI.
Right, we haven't gotten the AGI, right? The artificial general intelligence.
Exactly.
That's been a thing yet. Yeah.
All it is a yes man. It is a crony. It's just trying to figure out what you, like, statistically, what you are looking for, the answer you're trying to get.
Yeah.
That is all it's trying to do.
Yeah, that's what that's obviously what it's after. And so that's why I think it's interesting is the idea of cataloging and regurgitating information.
Exactly.
And being able to like build connections across data sets that would take otherwise like consuming and rocking all of these separately in order to mix together. So
admittedly though, eventually this is the foundation to get to a level of what we could consider to be intelligence, because you now have to have situational awareness to make intelligent decisions. Right? You can't just walk into a situation and be like, burn it all to the ground. Like, it doesn't work that way, right? Like, you have to have situational awareness. What is situational awareness? Frankly, a catalog of information so you have the awareness of the situation. So it's not, we are making baby steps to that in the world.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how these models continue to grow, how they start to handle unexpected results and things like that. Like, because that's the big part of it. Like, I saw a talk by Brian Cantrell earlier this year from Oxide about like, started off with the spook fun of like AI, but like was largely about the engineering challenges they had in Oxide, and like so many things they ran into, like everything they did was correct and it was supposed to work, but it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Right? And like this is where like engineering happens, right?
Exactly.
Like engineering isn't just give me the thing and it gives you the correct code to build it, right? So AI is not going to take over engineering because it can't do the thing where you're like, all of this is right, nothing worked. Like, why is... I can't do that level of troubleshooting to find out like, oh, there's a flaw in this other thing and this underlying, but you had to like go out there and come up with ridiculous ideas that don't make sense, that aren't the ones that you would answer in order to discover those outliers.
Just like Skippy.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I like seeing it as a tool. I like it as a reference tool. That's really neat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and obviously KubeCon and cloud native and open source, how does Watson tie into all of these? And
so actually, that's a really interesting conversation, because when you start spending time in the AI space, you quickly recognize that everything we've done with cloud native, everything we've done in the DevOps movement as a whole, is still extremely valuable, because how do you get from data sets to models to something out in the real world that you can use?
Yeah.
You have to build a pipeline. and you have to build a way to get that information continually improved over time.
Yeah.
No point in reinventing the wheel. We're all doing it, though. It's just another artifact you're pushing through your pipelines.
But now you're pushing through your language model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Awesome.
that's why we're here.
Cool. Well, where can people find out more about this? About where can they find you?
Yeah. I really do have the email address of awesome@ibm.com.
That's amazing.
It is. So, and seriously, please reach out if I can ever help. My job is to be accessible. Also, I'm at JJ Asghar more or less everywhere. You can find me there.
All right, great.
Yeah, man.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank
Glad
you
to
for
have you
having
here at Group Hub.
Yeah.